Hello everybody, this is Howard the Teaserking coming to you with week 13 of the NFL. Another 4 or 5 weeks and then off to the playoffs. So you start looking at games differently now. Who needs it for the playoffs? They're playing, this is a playoff game. This team, they're playing Arizona or they're playing a weak team, San Francisco. They don't need the game, so therefore the other team does. They're gonna play harder. They're gonna cover because now they're focused. They have to win, and when your back's against the wall, you play a lot better. Sort of like the Seattle Carolina game. That was part 2 of my lock last week. I had Ohio State getting the 11. They're great dogs, and I didn't think I didn't think Michigan was going to blow them out if they won. And I think I say in my video, I do pick Ohio State, and I think I say Ohio State wins 28-24, 24-21. I didn't think, obviously, there'd be 100 points, but I knew Ohio State would get into the 20s. You got 11 points, so Michigan's got to score 40, and I didn't. I mean, they scored 39, but again, Ohio State got into the 60s. It's amazing that game gets to 101. And the Memphis SMU game only got to 50. Just unbelievable. So the lock was good last week. Had a good week last week. The only loser was the New Orleans and then Cincinnati, Cleveland. And I believe that Cleveland's starting to look a little better. I think they got rid of Hugh Jackson. I think he's a terrible coach. Just judging by how bad Cleveland was, how many mistakes he made, and I've never seen him do anything successful. I'm not quite sure what everybody sees in this guy, that they think he's a good coach. So I don't know. I got to question like the reasoning, but basically, so I'll start laying away from Cleveland. I've been betting against them, and I've won 4 or 5 locks betting against them this year. So this is one. They beat a weak Cincinnati team. Dalton leaves in the second quarter, I believe, with the thumb. So he's out. So now you got to look at the backup. Really, their best quarterback has been Quentin Flowers the whole year if they would play the guy. He's much better than anything they got. So I'm hoping he actually gets in quarters because this guy's fantastic. So let's hope that they're smart enough to play their best player. Right now they're not, and that's why they're losing. So we start looking at the playoffs now. Once again, the college is on sale the rest of the year, $77. Basically, the conference championship, and then all the bowls, and then the playoffs. So that'll be $77. That's available now if you go and select the college ones. The pros I'll be giving discounts on as we go. I mean, right now the week for the pros 100, the month's only 250. The rest of the year is 6, and that'll be adjusted probably next week once we get through into December. And I always do the playoffs for 100, so I'll make the rest of the year probably like 250 or something through the Super Bowl. So we'll probably we'll do something like that next week. This week, big slate. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 strong games. Up to 3 locks. I'm basing. I got a college lock going. There's 3 games I love. I'm waiting on injury news on one. The other one, the spread's a little high. I'm hoping the spread comes down a little bit. And the third one, I'm still debating on locking it or not. Not a lot of over-under action. This is mostly, it's funny, sometimes I'm playing the team. Like last week, Seattle, Carolina, my thought was Seattle's the dog. Seattle's 12-1 as the road dogs. It's 2016. So I only had one thought on that game. Seattle's the dog against an average Carolina team. It ain't the Rams. It's not KC. Oh, even Seattle against the Rams was fine. So maybe the only team I wouldn't have locked Seattle against would have been maybe Kansas City. But then I probably would have went over with the game, because Seattle's more of an over now with Russell Wilson, and their defense is okay but not great. I mean, they really didn't stop Carolina until the Carolina got to the 10-yard line, and then they just held them out of the end zone. So it was like bend but don't break type of thing. But that's what so I never really looked at over-under there. I liked the team. The only over-under I really thought was going to be solid was New Orleans Atlanta, which I was shocked didn't get there. They missed by 3, and Atlanta fumbled 3 times. One at the 1, one at the 3, and one at the 17. That if they just score one more touchdown, it's a W. So, you know, that happens. That's gambling, and it's where if the turnovers run, Atlanta's 5-1 and 17, would have been another 21 points, and we would have gotten at least one touchdown out of it by New Orleans. So, you got to keep that in mind. So let's look at it. I'll give you the playoff scenario game. Excuse me, I've got this hacking cough for a while. I took antibiotics, got rid of it. As soon as the antibiotics stopped, the cold's back. Amazing doctors. All right, Seattle 9.5, 10 points over Frisco. Over under 46. So I look at Frisco as a weak team. I don't really look at them, you know, when you try to look at them in over-unders, what I'm running into is a team like Frisco. They score 22 a game. They're on their third quarterback. They give up 27 a game. So when I look at Frisco, I go, well, are they an over or are they an under? So I guess if they're playing Kansas City or the Rams or one of these Pittsburgh, one of these teams with a really good quarterback that scores a lot, I would think the game would go over, because I would think they would give up a lot of points and then score a little. But now I'm beginning to look at them more as a bet against team. They don't really score that much. They give up a lot. They got killed by Tampa last week. I couldn't even play them as a road dog, and they get blown out. So I can't really trust Frisco. I don't really... Driscoll, the quarterback, I have no idea. They get 380 a game. They pass for 245. Again, this is an average. They run for 134. And again, that's the average, but in the last few weeks it's been much lower. And let's look at Seattle. Now, Seattle, they score 25 a game and give up 22. So their defense starting to get better. Russell Wilson's got them at 25. And in that was 2 Ram games where the Rams scored in the 30s and Seattle scored in the 30s. So their defense is even better when it's not playing the Rams, which everybody's is, but they score 25. So they're more of like, okay, Coach Pete, he's there, they looking good. Now they throw for 230 a game and run for 150. So they get 377. So if you look at it, Frisco gets 380 a game, and Seattle gets 380 a game. And they do it a little differently. Seattle's got a little bit more run, but when they need to score, Russell Wilson puts up, 30 points against Carolina. Here they're at home, which it's funny, they're not the greatest home favorite that you think they are. That's a real misnomer. So let's look in between the numbers. Frisco, we know Seattle has to win the game for the playoffs. Frisco's out of it. Now we look at head-to-head. They play each other twice a year. What's the story? Seattle 10-2 in the series, 7-5 and 5-1, or 7-1 and 5-1. Seattle is in Seattle, and as the favorite, they're 5-1, 7-1. So when Seattle's at home and they're favored, they are 7-1, and over time they're 10-2. So that tells me this is a good matchup for Seattle, right? Frisco comes in. The losses are probably with Jim Harbaugh, the one that's 10-2 is the last 10 years, and you had some Harbaugh years in there. And since Harbaugh left, they're probably they're 5-1 the last 6. I don't remember when Harbaugh left. Excuse me. I don't remember when Harbaugh left, but you might have one of those. But basically, you got Frisco, who's it's not like they play really well in Seattle in the series. So then we look at, well, let's look at the quarterbacks, like I said. So we got Russell Wilson. See, he throws for 67%, 25 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and he only throws for 230 yards a game. And he doesn't get sacked. He's been sacked 34 times. The most, well, he's up there. Somewhere is 38. Is Eli Manning's been sacked 38. Couple of 30, 33, 32. So Deshaun Watson, Stafford, and Derek Carr have been sacked like 35 times. And so he's up there in the most, him and Eli Manning. So he does get sacked a lot. Oh, that's Dak Prescott actually is 38. Russell's 34. So the worst is Dak Prescott at 38. He holds the ball too long. Russell Wilson 34. So he does get sacked, but you can see he's 25-5. He doesn't turn the ball over much, which is what I want in my quarterback. San Francisco, I don't know if I even have anything. Where's this going? Oh, here, Nick Mullins. It's funny, he's got much better things than Garoppolo. Nick Mullins throws for 244 to 3 games, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And he's been sacked. He's only been sacked 4 times in the 3 games. So he's not bad at avoiding the rush. But again, it depends on who they play. So he's got 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So not bad. 244 a game. So you get some activity from him. Any running attack. Let's see. San Francisco. Matt Breida. 738 yards, couple of touchdowns. Seattle, Chris Carson, 635 yards and 4 touchdowns. And they got Mike Davis, 386 yards. I think he's more the fullback. And Frisco's got Alfred Morris, who used to be on Washington. He's got 300 yards. So let's go into the more of the intimate stats that Teaserking loves so much. The teaser trends, team by team. Frisco as a road dog, 4-1, 7-4 overall, so they're okay. 3-2 against as a road dog, so they're not, they're a little bit more as a road dog. Tampa did kill them last week. So again, you're changing quarterbacks, so it's hard to look at all the stats. Like Kansas City this year, you got Mahomes, so how do I look at last year's stats with Alex Smith, who's terrible, when I got Mahomes? So Kansas City, I got to be very careful looking at their stats. You're looking for some consistency, but really it's like when Manning went to Denver, you threw out the Tebow stats and you just had the Manning stats. Seattle, home favorite, 2-1. Nothing, they're not, perfect as a home favorite. 2-1 bet against. Now here is where Seattle is. They're 5-0 as the road dog. They're 7-0 on the road, and they're 10-1 overall. And this is where I start liking Seattle, going, their money. I don't know who the one home favorite loss was to, and I think it was early in the year. But again, they played 7 road games already and only 4 games at home. These schedules have been really weird, where Seattle's been on the road so long. Now they're at home, so now I'll really pay attention to them as home favorites. It should be much better now that they're in the season. That first 2 weeks is still exhibition time, and it's hard to even look at that. I mean, look at the Jets the first week against the Lions, put up 48. They probably haven't put up 48 the next 5 games, or the last 5 games. So you got to be leery of that. Let's go back to 2017. Frisco, very good road dog, 10-2, 19-8 overall. It's only 70%. 7-5 against, 18-9 against. So 10-2 is 83%. So Frisco's a pretty good road dog. Seattle, 5-5 as a home favorite. They must have had a real bad year last year as a home favorite. They went from 2-1, so they were 3-4 last year as a home favorite. Very surprising, but they're still 22-5 overall because they're 15-0 on the road. Seattle, very, very strong on the road for some reason. It's Russell Wilson. He will win you the game. If we go back to 16, Frisco starts sliding now. They're 13-6 as a road dog. They were pretty bad for a couple of years. And Seattle 12-7 as a home favorite, 32-13. So they're sliding. So really, you can't go too far back. The trends start changing. So you want to look at more of the current trend. Let's go back to 15. See, they've never been a real strong home favorite. They've been a hell of a. In 15, they were 15-2 as a road dog since 15. So really, that's their spot. That's why we locked them last week. But again, here they're 17-10. So they're not the greatest home favorite. Frisco is not the greatest road dog. But here's where we look at head versus head. Seattle is 10-2 in the series at home, 7-1 at home the last 8, 7-1 as the favorite, and that's so. Now we're looking at the head-to-head matchup, which is far more important than my more macro trend of, well, they're 2-1 and they're 10-1, you know, in a teaser, and Frisco's 4-1. Well, who did they play? Who was their 5 teams? And that's really why it's so much of a macro. But micro, Seattle and Frisco. Now the spread's 9.5. I would really love to get a 9. So this is a game. Had it been 7 or 8, would have been a lock. I would have locked Seattle at 7 or 8 points. And this is where they're 9.5. They need it for the playoff. Frisco just got blown out by Tampa. And that's really what I hate about betting, is how stupid these line makers are, because, you know, and really how stupid the public is. I mean, they only look at last week, right? Oh, Tampa blew them out, so let's make the spread. If Frisco won 50-0, the spread would be 3. That's how strange it is. They're not looking at this game. They're looking, what did Tampa Bay do them? Well, this isn't Tampa Bay. They're not playing at Tampa. They're playing at Seattle. Seattle's not at Carolina. Seattle's at home against Frisco. And that's the whole point. You every week, you're playing a different team than the week before, and you're not on the road, you're at home. Or you're not at home, you're on the road. That's the whole key. That's what Teaserking does. That's the whole point of these trends, is it sits there and says, Seattle's a great road dog, but they're not a great home favorite. But because we got head-to-head and because they need the game, now, how do I go over under here? Well, I know Seattle's pretty much of an over team. Look what they did at Carolina. So they'll probably, looking at Frisco here, so if we just look at the average, so you've got, Frisco gives up 27 a game. They only scored 22. Are they an over or are they an under? I mean, they could do what they did last week and not score a lot because of the third-string quarterback, but their defense is weak because of the third-string quarterback. A little more turnovers, not consistency. The defense doesn't rest enough, so they're giving up more. And Seattle is 25. They score 25, they give up 22. So it almost leads you more to, well, Seattle will probably score about 30, Frisco maybe in the teens. So now I'm 48, the over-under is 46. So now we know how they got the 46 over-under. But because Seattle is a very strong offense and their defense is getting better, maybe a Rams will put up 30 on them, but not a Frisco. And because they own Frisco, it's almost impossible to figure the over-under here. Seattle will score a lot, but I don't think Frisco could keep up to make it an over. See, Frisco's defense is giving up 27. So Seattle scores 30, but will Frisco be able to score? So because you don't know if Frisco's going to score, you then play Seattle. Because how do you play over or under? I don't want to play a 46. I can go down to 40. or I can go under 52. Well, Seattle could get hot and get over 52. So maybe the over 40 you could get away with, but what if they win 30-0, which easily could happen? Now they stay under. See, it's the way the game develops. If Frisco doesn't score, then it becomes a second half where team who's winning by 20 runs the ball, runs the clock, just tries to get the win. And that's what's so different about the pros, and that's why it's hard to lay, more than 3 or 4 points in a game, because once they log, they do their scoring in the first half. So if it's still close, they're just gonna, they get up and then they just bleed the clock, and then the other team scores the late touchdown, and they screw the guy laying 9 because the team's up 12 and just running the clock, and then they get a late touchdown because they're playing a prevent because they don't care. They're just playing the clock, and then they win by 5, and you're screwed laying 12 when it was 14 points, and then they cut it to 7 with a late touchdown, and you're like, oh shit, I just lost, even though I dominated the game, because they're not trying to win by 30, they're trying to win the game. So they're basically doing that. So that's really what happens in pros. So you got to be careful with it. I think because it's a playoff game for Seattle, they must win. They're not going to catch the Rams, but they're in good shape beating Carolina. As far as making the playoffs, this is a game they can't afford to lose against a weak opponent. They won't be flat on it. So I like Seattle laying the 3.5 here. It's a team they dominate. At home, they can score. Even if they get down, they can come back and score. I don't think Frisco's going to score a lot in this game. They're just not. They didn't score on Tampa. Tampa's defense, for an example, here's how I look at it a lot. Tampa's defense gives up 31 points a game. San Francisco lost 27-9 last week. So if they can only get 9 points at Tampa against that defense, they're going to score 30 against Seattle? It ain't going to happen. And you're not too bad, 9.5. If you can get a 9, I would suggest to maybe do a 6.5 point teaser to get it to 2.5, and then I'd bet more on it because of the odds going down. But basically, if you can lay, 3, you'll be okay. Even 3.5, I don't see this game being close. I think Seattle wins by at least 2 touchdowns here, because I don't think Frisco's got much of an offense. This Nick Mullins, now you got some tape on him. I don't think he's that big of a superstar anyway. If he was behind Beathard, how good can he be if he's behind Beathard, who wasn't really that good at Iowa? So that's my point. Russell Wilson, Seattle beats Carolina. I know their defense wasn't that good, but they still marched up and down the field on Carolina and got the W there. So I look at them laying the 3.5 as probably the best way to play this game. I guess I would go over 40, but I'm really scared that Frisco just won't score enough to get it over. So now you're looking at 31-3 Seattle. So why mess around with the over when I think Seattle can score a lot on them, not give up a lot on them, and easily cover the 3.5. So take Seattle laying the 3.5. I think that's it. There's 3 other potential games that I'm thinking of locking for sure too. Again, I'm waiting on an injury on one of the games. It's a huge board this week. I love it. And now I'm starting to get my trends. I'll quickly give you some teaser trends of this year that are things you should note. The Bears are 11-0 in a teaser. The Rams are 10-1. New Orleans is 10-1. Carolina, surprisingly, is 10-1. Indy's 10-1, which I'm sure nobody knew. Houston's 10-1. Kansas City's 11-0, and Seattle's 10-1. So this is why I keep teaser trends. So right there, I'm like, oh yeah, the Rams. Well, New Orleans, Carolina's a surprise. Indy's a surprise, but that's Andrew Luck. Houston's totally a shock, 10-1, but that's okay. They're playing better. They're getting Deshaun Watson's knees starting to recover. He's not done yet. It's a good year and a half. He's out, so he's not nearly where he's going to be. Kansas City, it's all Mahomes. I mean, before that, you had nothing on him. And then Seattle, Russell Wilson, and they got the new defensive guys, the UCF guys, and they're mighty tough. Look at the against Atlanta, play against 10-1 for some reason. I mean, it's all Freeman is the whole offense if he doesn't play, and I still think it's the defense that just they didn't play terrible against New Orleans. It was the fumbles. They had 3 fumbles there, or it would have been a very competitive game. The Giants bet against 10-1. Philly bet against 10-1. That shocks me. Philadelphia loses their quarterback coach to Minnesota or something, and I don't know if they lost their offensive coordinator. And now all of a sudden, they go from Super Bowl team, of which you would never have expected. All right, last year here's Philadelphia, 18-1 against the teaser, and 8-11 against it. So 18-1 if you tease them, 8-11 if you bet against them last year. Okay, and now this year they're 7-4 and 10-1 against. I've never seen anything like it. How a team can be so dominant one year, and they weren't even that dominant. I mean, it was like Houston, right? Houston's 10-1 this year, which you don't even like. I'm not hammering Houston every week. I did have them on Monday night, but it's not like a team I'm like, oh, what's Houston doing? And yet, I didn't. That's how it was with Philadelphia. They really weren't this dominant team. I remember betting against the Rams, and I won. And then Wentz gets hurt, and so you couldn't bet him the rest of the year with Foles. And then they start. I think I bet the under in one of the playoff games, and won. And then against Minnesota, I think I had him as a home dog. And then I had the over in the Super Bowl because you could see they were scoring with Nick Foles. So again, the Giants, Philadelphia. So again, this is the only way you can see this. This is how I excel because now I know who to get off of, who to get on. If I'm going to bet Indy and Houston, I'm going to get off the Giants and Philly. It's funny now in the AFC, only Oakland is 10-1 against. I mean, the Jets are 9-2, but now even Cleveland's 9-2. There's really not a lot of against 10-1s. There's some close. Jacksonville 9-2, Cincy 9-2, Miami 9-2, New England surprisingly 9-2, the Jets 9-2. But you got a lot more 10-1s and a couple of 11-0s on the pro side. The Bears and Kansas City with Mahomes, and 4 of those have been road dogs. So it's not like they're playing a weak schedule. I mean, they blew out San Diego. They blew out Pittsburgh. I'm talking Kansas City. They played the Rams tough, all on the road. So that shows you what they're made out of. So they're, this is what you look for. These are all 90. Okay, if I take any 10-1, it's a 91% trend, right? We all know 11-0s are 100. The 9-2s are 82%. So when I hear people talking about, well, why do you play a teaser? I didn't need the teaser. One guy sitting there going, well, I had Ohio State plus 4.5, and I'm going, I had 11. Like, okay, what does that mean? I mean, so you won with yours. How much did you bet getting 4? Did you make a big bet like I made getting 11? Because now I've got a huge trend. They're a great dog. That's the point. I can bang the bet getting 11. Ohio State's not losing. That's why it was my lock. There is no freaking way Ohio State and 11's losing. They'd beat half the pro teams. Now you come here with, okay, I won with 4, but you probably didn't bet that much. You probably didn't even think they'd win the game, so now you're just hoping, they're a home dog. And for me to find a second game, I just gave you, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams, 10-1 or 11-0 if you play them. And I got 4 teams 10-1 against. So it's not really hard to find a second team to play with Ohio State, which I had Seattle as a huge road dog. So That's my point. Let me go back to 17 and let's see if we can find trends. The Bears 23-4, New Orleans 25-4, Philly 25-5 because they were 18-1 last year. But you can see, and that's the beauty of it, you can see how their trend's fading. So you can say, I'm going to stay away from them. They're not, they were 18-1 last year. San Diego 22-5, Seattle 22-5. Bet against Green Bay 21-6, Atlanta 24-5, the Giants 23-4, Cleveland 25-2, Miami 22-5, Oakland 24-3. So you can see some consistency. The Giants have been bad for 2 years. Cleveland starting to get, they were 16-0 last year, so they're, and all of a sudden there's 2 games that, all of a sudden they're 9-2 against the number, finally winning at Cincinnati, which is really what I'm looking at. I'm like going, okay, they're not the worst team in the league. Oakland is, Arizona, Buffalo is apparently got a decent defense. The Jets, kind of stink, but when I look at who's the worst team, I gotta say it's Oakland, Arizona, and Buffalo are the 3 worst teams. And I mean, they're just, and it's very evident. Jacksonville is probably one of them. I mean, Arizona scores 14 a game, Buffalo 15, Oakland 17, and Jacksonville 18. Now, how the hell do you not score 20 points in the NFL now? Tennessee's another team with 18 a game. And here you got New Orleans at 37, Kansas City at 37 a game, the Rams at 35, the Bears at 29, San Diego at 28, Pittsburgh at 29, Indy at 30. So all of a sudden you draw a conclusion, wait a minute, the teams that can really score are all the really strong teams, and the teams that can't score are the weak teams who we bet against. So if you just looked at that premise, I mean, there you go. Now, the key is, now I heard these handicappers on TV, and I think it was on YouTube, and they're so stupid. Well, it's a 70% or 60% if you bet a teaser. Like, they were actually pro teaser, saying they're not bad, but he's like, well, if you just bet them, there's like 70% or something. And I agree with that, but my point is, the problem is they don't know when to bet them, right? They don't know if you take Seattle as a road dog. Now you got this, you go back to 16, Seattle's 12-1, 92% as a road dog. That's really the key that separates me from the rest of these clowns, because they don't look at it like that. They're not breaking it down. They don't have the trends. That's why I do the trends, because I know when you take the teaser and when you don't, and when to play on a team and when to play against, and what I'm looking for. They're just randomly going, well, if I just take, I think it was like, if I can just take a team getting over 7 or under 3, if I just take those teams, then I'll go 65% or something. So just blindly. But they don't get the role, right? Seattle, 12-1 is the road. That's when I bet them. Green Bay, 13-3 home favorite. New Orleans, 12-3 home favorite. That's what I'm looking for. Bet against Cleveland. Bet against Cincinnati as a road dog. Bet against Oakland as a road dog. I mean, that's the whole point. Bet against Denver as a road dog also. I mean, that's the whole point of my whole problem solving. I mean, I'm calling this now problem solving. The problem is picking the game, and here's how I solve it. And I kind of like it. So that's really the key to it, is knowing when to bet the team, when is it good to bet them, and when is it good to bet against them. Or you just, some teams, here, let's look at Indy as a home dog is 4-3, 57%. What does that tell you? It tells you when they're the home dog, I don't want anything to do with them. They're not a good home dog. In fact, if I bet against Indy as a home dog, I'm 6-1 if I take the road favorite. So I mean, it tells you there's no trend, so just ignore it. I mean, I'm ignoring Tennessee, Jacksonville. I don't even look at their games because I can't even guess. There's no trends. They're all over the freaking place. You have no idea how to play them. Then you get the new quarterbacks. Oh, I got to watch. I got new coaches. Okay, I got to get their trends. So until you can get a good, solid trend, like I want 2 years of Patrick Mahomes, then I'll understand how to play him and that. For now, yeah, I mean, they're 11-0 against the number. I guess I'm playing Patrick Mahomes, but I don't know what his weakness is yet. I don't know if he has one. He puts up 40 on New England, 40 on the Rams, beats Pittsburgh. I mean, okay, I mean, you beat the best, or you were strong against those teams. So anyway, so that's really what I have for you. So all that extra information, you know, if you just want to come to the video and look at, oh, he took Seattle, then that's what you get out of it. If you want to watch the video and get educated, and then you'll understand what I do better, and even you can go, oh, yeah, hey, look, Seattle's a road dog, New England's a dog, Ohio State's a dog. Then you really understand. If I ever get Alabama as a dog, I'm going to sell my car, and I'll just bet the car. I mean, that's how sure I'd be. All right, everybody, www.teaserking.com. Again, $77 for the rest of college through the playoffs. The pros are still the regular. It's $100 for the week. You get the locks, $250 for the month, and $600 for the rest of the year. It'll be $100 for the NFL playoffs when we get to that point, and I'll be reducing it next week for the rest of the season. But you can certainly buy the month for $250, which is affordable. All right, everybody, have a great week. www.teaserking.com.